Warhammer 40k 10th edition is right around the corner, and I can't wait because it looks like Games Workshop has decided to make Warhammer 40k more accessible. There is this fun package that I want to climb into, which is lying on a beach in Tahiti, drinking gin and tonics, getting a massage. But that fun package is not very accessible to me because I live in Swindon. Jumping into a jacuzzi with a bunch of buttery sea otters also sounds like fun, but again, not very accessible. Where'd you get sea otters from? And Warhammer 40k can be like that sometimes. It is a bundle of fun, but sometimes there's very many barriers in between you and the fun. One of those big barriers has been all the rules. So they're tidying them all up with the launch of 10th edition, and it'll all be there on your data sheets and on the right in front of you when you play the game. A more accessible edition, you can get to your fun a bit quicker. You don't have to go on the internet and find out how to buy sea otters. So with 10th, the new accessible edition, we're getting new missions. We're getting like a Leviathan of War deck building thing, like we have the Tempest of War deck building thing. I'm down with deck building things. Open War, Tempest of War, Maelstrom of War, love them. This is not a diss on what they're giving us. I hope they give us more decks. The Leviathan deck, the Pariah Nexus deck, the Top Trumps Fighter Jets deck. Decks are good. More ways to play Warhammer 40k makes it more accessible. But they're missing one thing. I feel like one of those adverts that pops up on your thing where it goes, you need this one thing. But they're missing one thing. They've said that in the main rulebook, there's going to be a mission. And they need more than that. It was playing Heresy that gave me this revelation. You see, in previous editions of Warhammer 40k, except the last one and the next one, apparently, there were 6 basic missions inside the rulebook. When you play Heresy, these are the deployment maps. You just roll a d6. Then you got 6 mission types: Blood Feud, Onslaught, Shatter Strike. You roll a d6, and if you don't want to pick them, just roll a dice. And while there might seem like there's not very much variety there, I must have played 50 games of Heresy by now. I mean, there's 9 of them on the channel, on the Horus Heresy playlist. I've played a lot of Heresy, and no 2 games have ever felt the same. But more importantly, I could just play. It's more accessible. Roll some dice, here's the missions, go. I'm not flipping through a card deck. I love the card decks, but I'm not flipping through the card deck and then in Tempest of War in turn 3. No, Leviathan, the new one in turn 3. I'm not saying to hell with my secondaries or my primaries or whatever it is. I now take a gambit to try and get 30 points, and you're cycling through your secondaries and your opponent isn't cycling through their there's some complication, not much, but there's some complication to the Leviathan deck, which is missing from the straightforward games that we used to have. Now, I'm not saying one or the other. Why can't we have both? Why can't we have more ways to play Warhammer 40k? And I think if there was more than just one base mission in the main rulebook, they would make it more accessible and more people would play. If you were learning to play the game, you would sort of start off at that combat patrol level, boarding actions level, and then play the basic missions in the basic rule book, pickup games, casual games. And then if you wanted to elevate your game even further to go to that competitive play type level and eventually to tournaments, then you pick up all the cards and then you go for it. There needs to be kind of like a ladder, more ways to play Warhammer 40k, more basic rules in the base rule book to make it as accessible as it can be. I've said accessible a few times. Let me get in my fun box as quickly as I can. Okay, so Games Workshop have revealed that in the main book there's going to be one pickup game, which I think is an L. They need to have a chunk of pickup games in there for the casual players. It might not all be over. They might release an open war deck like they've done before later on in the edition. Of course, there's no right or wrong way to play Warhammer 40k. I played the Tempest of War deck a lot. I've also made it up a lot, and in 10th edition, I would make it up again, as well as play the decks again. I'll make it up again. Here's some ideas. 6 base missions. Let's see if I can rattle these out. Mission 1, get a point for every unit that you kill and get d6 extra points if you slay the warlord. It's fun, it's swingy, there's a Hail Mary in there, and it's very easy for new people. 2, put 5 or 6 objectives down on the table. You get a point for every objective that you control at the end of the game and an extra point for killing the warlord. 3, line breaker, attack, defend type mission. The defender puts down their whole army first and 2 objectives in their deployment zone. The attacker then puts down their whole army, and whoever controls both objectives at the end of the game wins. If each side controls 1 each, it's a draw. Roll off to see who goes first. Whether the defenders have the jump or the attackers have the jump, but the point is Someone already controls 2 objective markers and they're defending against the rush. 4, you each have an objective each in your deployment zone, fight over them, extra points for Slay the Warlord. 5, you could fight over table quarters, and 6, you could fight over custody of the Sea Otters. Nice, simple, basic. Too basic? Then also have 6 rules that you could plug into those games if you want to. Rule number 1, low gravity. Everything moves 2 inches further. 2, King of the Hill. Put an extra objective in the middle of the table. Whoever controls that at the end of the game gets d6 extra points. 3, let's have a bombardment. Let's have both sides bombard the crap out of each other with very big guns that are a long way away. Pick 2 units in your opponent's army in every single one of your shooting phases and do d6 mortals and d6 mortals to each unit, but they're doing the same back to you. Lots of stuff will die. It'll be glorious. 4, command point reroll stratagems not allowed. They're banned. 5, you have to put half of your army in reserve and roll to see if they come out. Staggered deployment. And 6, give the Sea Otter a chainsaw. You can play Warhammer 40k however you want to. It's your hobby. They're your toys. It's your fun. And Games Workshop is certainly making the next edition as accessible as it can be, but is it? There could have been more in the main. I'm beating the dead Sea Otter to death. Does that work? I'm not sure it works. I don't know why I'm talking about sea otters. I saw a thing on YouTube and they were floating around holding hands, the mummy one with the baby, and they float. It was so cute. And I'm sure everyone knows about sea otters, but if you don't, honestly, Google it, put it, and watch some YouTube. It's lovely. I'm not sure I learned about sea otters until I was like in my 20s and went to America. I think sea otters are an American thing, like freedom and oil. Anyway, that's the video. I'm kind of asking for an open war deck, basically, or a Maelstrom of war deck while you're at it. You know, the old one with the thing, 3 cards a turn, but sometimes you got stuck with a card that you didn't want. Say it was 3 cards a turn, cards, and you automatically played 2 every time. Just 1 deck as well, not 2 decks for 2 people. A deck, Maelstrom, 30 cards, 3 a turn, pick 2. That could be a thing as well. Is Games Workshop missing a trick by not having like 6 basic pickup games in the main rulebook, like in Horus Heresy, as accessible as it can? I keep saying accessible. What do you think? Do you like sea otters? Happy wargaming.